You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
This is the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast. It's the show where we pull back the veil of cultural resources management, archaeology, and discuss the issues that everyone is concerned about. Welcome to the podcast. Hello and welcome to the CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 153 for December 19th, 2018. I'm your host, Chris Webster. On today's show, we talk about, well, just about everything. It's the year-end wrap-up for 2018. So get out your day planners and calendars because we're going to dig up the past. Wow. And because the CRM Archaeology Podcast starts right now. Welcome to the show, everyone. Joining me today is Bill in California.
Good morning.
And Bill in Maryland.
Hello there.
So I think we're just going to call this Two Bills and a Chris. That's going to be the name of this episode. So I'm not going to say West Coast Bill and East Coast Bill this time because it's just two Bills. You guys figure it out. So you guys will be like Bill Russian roulette. Like which Bill is going to answer? So this is our last, it's 2019, as I said in the introduction, and I'm sorry, it's 2018, December 19th, as I said in the introduction, if you're listening to this on the day that it released. And this is pretty much our last episode of 2018. I think we're going to record one more in 2018, but it's not going to come out until 2019. So this is it. So we're doing kind of a 2018 wrap up. And what my intention for this episode was to just basically talk about stuff. Could be archaeology related, could be related to the podcast, you know, whatever you guys are doing, you know, what were some of the big things that stood out for you in 2018? Could be news articles. There's all the best archaeology sites discovered in the world in 2018. You know, all that stuff's coming out too, which I've got some opinions on those types of articles. And then, you know, just whatever. So I'll kick it off and say 2018, as far as the Archaeology Podcast Network for me, has been, well, at the same time, really rewarding and also extremely more difficult than it has been in the past. And I think one of the big reasons is I've really ramped up the commitments I have and the things that I'm doing. And not only that, but I started back in, it was like February or March timeframe. They actually started paying me with WildNote that I've mentioned many times on this show and other shows. I started consulting with them and they started taking more and more of my time and paying for it, which was great. And, you know, anybody who does freelancing or has a lot of things that they do knows that paid gigs have to supersede non-paid gigs. It's just how it works. You got to get your bills paid. So I spent the whole time since then just really working on, really focusing on WildNote stuff. And then to kind of solidify the relationship, I went permanent with them, like salaried with them on November 1st. And so now they're still letting me, I mean, they don't impose a schedule on me, but they still expect me to do things, obviously. My offer letter says, you know, the typical salaried offer letter, you'll work 40 hours a week minimum and you're going to get paid this much. So here you go. And we have regular meetings. I'm the only one that's really, truly remote, being here in Nevada. The rest of them are in California. Now, that being said, they have a small office and a lot of them just work remotely anyway. So sometimes when we have a conference call, people are at home or they're at a coffee shop or they're wherever and they're doing stuff. But that being said, it's really been a strain on me to keep the APN going. But like I said, it was encouraging as well because there's just that one time occasionally when I'll meet somebody. And it was actually in a sales call with WildNote one time. Actually, a few times this happened when I would talk to somebody and they were like, oh, I listen to your podcasts and I really love them and I enjoy hearing everything on the APN and all the things you guys are doing. And I'm like, oh, okay, that gives me fuel in my motivation tank for the APN or for this podcast in general to go for another month. You know, I mean, that's really where it is. It's almost like day to day. Why am I still doing this? Because you, and I'm not saying people need to write in and do anything, but it does help. It does help when people comment on shows online, when they share them on social media so other people can hear them. And when we just see that kind of engagement, any engagement from outside the network really shows us that people are listening and people keep it going. I got a question for the Bills. Whoever wants to answer. You guys are both on social media. You're both on Twitter. You're both on, doing things around the internet. Do you get, speaking of 2018 in particular, because I want to look at the, how far we've come, because I know Bill in California, West Coast Bill, you have gotten feedback from the network a lot, in the things that you've done and talked to people. But have you guys had anything recently, like maybe 2018 or even more recently than that, like later in 2018, where you've had interaction with people about the podcast?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
It started to turn in. I'm starting to see it in the PhD applications.
Really?
So those who don't know, the fall is the summer is the time period when any aspiring person who wants to get a graduate degree in archaeology finally gets fed up on that 95th shovel probe or that second 10-day session in boiling heat that you finally decide, you know what, I could probably do this better than the guy who's telling me to do this. And so you decide that you're going to go to school, right?
Yeah.
And so then everybody spends part of the summer going back and forth on whether they're going to do it. And then they call up all the letters from their old advisors and they mail them all in for these fall deadlines. And then now my Christmas gets to be adorned with evaluating graduate applications, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but that's part of the whole, well, professors get summer off. Yeah, right, man. I wake up at 4 a.m. every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And work. And there is no such thing as a day off. Before this, I was already writing. So I get to look at the applications and, I'm lucky because I'm a professor and I get to see a lot of aspiring people, but I am starting to see that people are starting to listen to podcast episodes. Either they were or were not. But when they send in their application, they're the biggest fan in the universe magically, right? Because they want us to let them into the university. But that is actually happening. On the other hand, though, while I'm starting to, I went, 100% focus on professor stuff, but then I realized that, that was slowing down my interaction on the internet. And this podcast was really the lifeline that kept me blogging and kept me alive, because there's huge swaths of the year where I didn't publish any blog posts, but I still, came onto the podcast. And by doing that and sharing it on social media, I stayed in the loop, even though I've, slowed down on social media and stuff. But the stuff that we discuss and all that has really kept me alive with trying to stay on the internet, which is important because now I'm realizing that there's not a lot of archaeologists who really are interested in blogging and podcasting. They're listening and they love what we're doing, but there's not really anyone interested in creating content. I'm starting to realize. I don't know. I guess I can say it. I had a workshop where I was going to teach at the SHA the stuff that I'd learned blogging and podcasting, how to get started, and about how much effort you can think or how much effort it's going to go into it. And then, building a media strategy so that your blog isn't just something that you write one time. It actually lives even after you've written posts. There's posts that I have that are years old that people still visit. So, I wanted, what I see with most archaeology blogs is it's for whatever archaeology project. And then that person gets their PhD and they never talk about blogging again. They never in any way produce any online content. So I wanted, the problem is we live in a world where people are getting their news through Twitter. Like the whole thing about what's going on with celebrities and everybody else. People in the news are not actually going out and doing research. They're just sitting in their jammies at a laptop and trolling Twitter to find out what people are saying, and then writing a whole news in quotation marks article on what happened because of what someone said on social media, right? So if you're not actually on social media, you're not on the internet, you kind of actually don't exist. And that's really where archaeology is at. People don't know what archaeology does. They don't have any idea that it's something that they could study in college because they're getting, ancient alien stuff from the internet and they're not really engaging. So, going back to 2018, I've realized that I need to stay online and I need to stay doing what I'm doing, if not increase what I'm doing, because other archaeologists need to recognize that if you're not on the internet, well, first of all, you are on the internet. Google is constantly creating information and profiling you on the internet. You are on the internet. It's just not what you want to be known for. If you want to be an archaeologist, you want to be known for archaeology, not for silly cat videos and stuff like that, because that's what Google's creating for you. So I guess the biggest thing I realized in 2018 is I need to up the game.
Yeah, you've talked about that a lot, where you're talking about your personal brand, because your personal brand is being created for you, like you said, by internet crawlers that are just building this profile. That if you're not curating what's out there and being mindful of what is out there in the world, because if you say, like, I have a friend who is he was on Facebook a long time ago. Now he's not on Facebook anymore, but then he had to reactivate his Facebook account for something. So he has a Facebook account, but he doesn't go there. He specifically said he never goes there, but he had to reactivate it to interact with some other page. Well, just because he's there now, he's now taggable too. So people could be tagging him and stuff, and essentially building this essential profile that he has no control over, that he has no visual sight on. So he's just saying, oh, I don't like Facebook, so it's over there. But the fact is 2 billion people do like Facebook, and that's a pretty sizable quarter of the population of the world. Yeah. And they have this image of you of basically whatever your friends are creating. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing about it too is, we've talked about it. I don't know if we've mentioned it on the podcast very much, but if you say something like brand or money or something like that, there's this like deep trigger that happens in almost every archaeologist, because we believe we're somehow in this other dimension where that stuff, is not part of what we do. I don't do this for money. God, why would you ever soil yourself with that? And I mean, the whole branding thing and talking about that, like, that's the way that the marketers speak about the fact that the internet is creating an identity for you, and you're supposed to control it. So the minute we talk about brand, that immediately there's this trigger that so many people, oh, how disgusting, yet another marketer trying to sell me something. And so, there's no way we can get around it. However anyone wants to think about it, the internet is creating a profile for you. And you need to be the one who's actually filling the internet with the stuff that you want it to know about you. And if you're not doing it, I don't care if you're, a Nobel Prize winner, if you're one of the most famous archaeologists in the world. Actually, in the meeting a while ago, some folks at Berkeley were complaining about the profile that Google had created for them, built on stuff that they didn't put on themselves. And so there was some professors that were saying, oh yeah, mine's perfect, it's exactly what I fed into Google. And others are saying, well, there's inaccuracies and I don't know how to fix it. And I'm kind of like, you should have been building it like a long time beforehand. But these are my peers. So I'm thinking, well, after they do create it, how do we fix this?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I got to echo one thing you said, and then we'll get to East Coast Bill. And, but I just got to say, one thing you said that I didn't write down, but it's totally true. This podcast kind of keeps me going too. I have, because I'm the producer and editor for the APN and all that stuff, I have a lot of anxiety leading up to literally every single recording that I do, because it's like, okay, is it going to go well? Do I have enough questions? If it's an interview, have it prepared well. This show, we haven't done a lot of interviews lately because we have so many hosts. We have a lot to talk about, so we don't have to really base ourselves on interviews. But that being said, we still have to have topics, and we still have to have a show every 2 weeks. And you guys have the option of saying, oh, I can't make it, but I don't. So every 2 weeks I got to be there. And that's a lot of anxiety. And I'm only saying that because it all pretty much washes away the minute I hit record. And it's just a conversation with you guys. You know what I mean? And we're just talking about stuff, but literally every time it's a lot. And then we just record, and it's awesome. And, I enjoy editing the show and then getting it posted for other people to hear and engage with. So that does keep me going to an extent, just the process, the work, just doing it. East Coast Bill, you've been on the show not that long, so just a couple months really, and
just a couple months. So yeah. So at this point, I really don't get the sort of outside recognition. It's mostly I'm more in the evangelical phase of the podcast more than anything else. Like
nice.
This week, I'm heading down for a project, and on Wednesday, the crew will be listening to this podcast because I'm driving, so they get to listen to what I put on the radio. So I've been spreading the word that way. Nice. I did have one nice interaction earlier this year at the SAA conference in DC. I was presenting a paper on telecommunications, towers, and archaeology, which is sort of the subject of the very, very first appearance on this show from the Vancouver SAA the year before. And after I gave the paper, someone came up to me and thanked me for my paper, which is always nice to hear just from a paper, because that's the stress of the internet is one thing. even though the stress of standing in front of actual people is so much more, even though there are more people listening to me now than there ever did in that room right there. But so she first thanked me, but she also mentioned that she had heard me on the Pseudo-Archaeology podcast when I did the episode about telecommunications archaeology, and that felt really good. So yes, the feedback is always nice to get, and it is sort of the charge you need, because often whether it's doing a podcast, doing Twitter, doing your Instagrams, if you're not sort of getting that sort of teptic feedback of some type or other, you wonder whether or not you really are just a voice in the void, or are you actually part of a conversation or a community. Since we were talking about Twitter and like Twitter presences in archaeology, one of the biggest things I've seen this year that I liked a lot was sort of the growth and the solidification of like the hashtag pseudo-archaeology between folks like Sarah Head and Steph Baumhofer and David Anderson, really like going after the worlds of ancient archaeology, or that new Megan Fox TV series on Travel Channel or whatever. They were they're always, whenever something pseudo-archaeology makes it into the media or press, this cadre of people are always out there in the front lines, sort of pushing. And for me, it's a good example of what good internet public archaeology looks like. They're engaged, they're involved. So that's always gives me encouragement when I see that kind of action on there. It's like there is hope out there. So
nice. Well, that's good. It's always nice to see engagement in any form on some of these archaeology things, right? So sometimes it's just I really have to digest the Megan Fox thing too. Like I've seen a bunch of articles, but I haven't actually seen the shows, and I want to. Before I really tear it down, I feel like I have to see the shows, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. Well, when we go to my sister-in-law's next week, she has Travel Channel, I'm sure, so maybe we can pick that up. I'm not sure if they'll stream anywhere. Have you guys looked them up at all? If they're streaming? Yeah.
I've also been letting these people do the good work for me of watching it, so I don't have to.
Right?
So I haven't bothered to look.
Yeah. Oh, man.
My students are the ones who told me about that, and I was thinking, who is Megan Fox? I don't even know. So maybe now she's finally famous because she's doing something on something I care about.
I know. The only thing I really knew about her after they said it was, and I don't even think I saw the movies, she was in the Transformers movies, I guess, or at least the first one. So
the first two, I think, yeah.
The first two, yeah.
I saw them. I regret that, but I did see them.
Nice. All right. Well, before we go, I will just say, since we're coming up to an ad break, and you're more than likely going to hear an ad for WildNote because I usually pop that in here first. But that's the one thing that's also going to help me keep the APN going is one of two things. And those are going to be some changes, hopefully, that you're going to see in 2019 on the entire network. Is I'm actually talking to a few people that I work with here at the Reno Collective, and somebody that I just did a podcast workshop for. She's starting a new podcast, but she's a writer, and we're going to talk about trading some services, because one thing that would help keep the APN going is if we could take a lot of stuff off my plate. If all I had to do was show up and record and come up with shows, that I can do. That's easy. But when it comes down to editing and doing some of the marketing and promotion and stuff, I just don't have time for it. And we don't have time to pay people for it either. So we're working on trading service deals and commission deals and stuff like that. And the two things that would help take all that off my plate are either, notice I didn't say both, but either advertising more heavily or increasing membership. So the membership promo is the one you're going to hear in the second break, but those are the two things. And my preference is the membership, because if we had membership at, several hundred members a month at $5, $10, or $20 per month with all the perks that you get with that, then we don't have to do advertising. And I don't want to do both, right? Like if advertising starts to take off and it's not increasing membership, I might get rid of the membership program, because it's also something that's kind of a bear to maintain. And since there's only about 35 people in there, that gets to be, somewhat cumbersome for just that few people. If I had 100, 200, 300 people in there, then I could have somebody maintain that and make sure they're getting the services that they're paying for. But it's one or the other at this point. It can't be both. And it's whichever one increases our revenues, allows me to pay for editing, pay for better equipment, pay the hosts, co-hosts included, pay everybody. that is what will keep this sustained. And it's going to be either advertising or membership. So either way, if you're interested in advertising, arcpodnet.com/ads, ADS, arcpodnet.com/ads, and you can see what our prices are. And I think they're pretty reasonable for the 130,000 plus people we're reaching each month. So, all right, we'll be back in a second with more of our 2018 wrap up. Hey, podcast fans and digital archaeologists. Have you heard about WildNote? It's a data collection app that works online or offline on your smartphone or tablet, iOS or Android. It allows you to collect field data easily, manage data efficiently, and generate data reports and site records effortlessly. We have a growing list of state site forms built in for your use and some generic forms that will work anywhere. Check out the shovel testing and photograph forms. You can get a free all-access 30-day trial today by going to wildnoteapp.com. That's wildnoteapp.com for your free 30-day trial. Now back to the show. All right, we're back for CR Mark episode 153, our 2018 wrap-up. And as we mentioned before the break, one of the things that happened in 2018, and actually just at the end of 2018, was the actress Megan Fox started a new show on the Travel Channel, and I may or may not link to that in the show notes. I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant to. But she started this new show, and it's basically, I think it's a 4 or 6 episode series. I can't remember. It's a limited run series. It's not like this whole new show she's doing. But she went out around to these major sites around the country. Stonehenge was one of them, a couple others. I don't know what the others are. And she's basically putting forth these like alternative theories, and it's all just coming out of her head, right? She's not like a host talking to different people who are experts. In fact, one of the articles I read said at Stonehenge, the person she was talking to had his only like credential was, quote, local expert. like also somebody who's just living on the landscape and doing these things. Now, that's not to say that local experts don't have value in archaeology. Obviously they do. They're living there. They're doing those things. But if you're going to do a show about something that's seen as an academic topic, we'll get somebody who's knowledgeable and published in the subject to talk about it. But anyway, that's beside the point. What we were really talking about and what we were getting at on the break between these segments was that the archaeological community doesn't really have a solid response to this. You know, we're complaining about these things on Twitter. We're complaining about them on Facebook. I see all the people saying, "Oh, have you seen this new show?" Blah blah blah. Okay, what are you going to do about it? You know, and even the Archaeology Podcast Network, we really should have sat down, watched the show, and then talked about it, and then had that as something that is Googleable as well. Put it in the title and increase the SEO on it, and make it so when somebody types in Megan Fox, our show comes up, and they can hear actual archaeologists talking about what she did right and what she did wrong. And, you know, what she did right was she put the word archaeology back in the mainstream media without attaching Indiana Jones to it, right? But what she did wrong was everything else.
Well, and also what she did right is capitalize on our past of being the bad guys.
Well, yeah.
Like there's
totally.
one Indiana Jones, but there was literally, hundreds of Bellocks. Everything up to the 90s was basically Belloc. And I think a lot of people are still doing that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, I mean, I guess she's right on that too. Well, I am looking through them though. And like, there's a couple of things. Like, first of all, you're not going to really be able to beat Hollywood actress that was in Transformers, which anyone who's an actual child of the 80s knows that these new Transformers should be burned on a pile, because the actual Transformers was the thing that made your bike ride faster home from school to get home to watch that episode. Like, real Transformers happened in the 80s. Whatever this new thing is, they don't even actually make the sound that the Transformers make either. So, all right, once we're beyond that, right, then we can finally get to actual archaeology. And so, once again, it's just another show where they're doing whatever they feel like and saying, aliens did it, right, which is totally racist. But we did use our power back with the Nazi war diggers thing a couple of years ago when, the SAA and everybody was like, yeah, it's a horrible idea to have a show of you digging up Nazi skeletons for the History Channel or somebody. I can't even remember, right?
Yeah.
So, we did come out and it was all over and everybody wrote blog posts and, even the top brass fought against it. But rather than reacting, I think you're right. There needs to be much more, proactive stuff. And it needs to be at the level of this, right? Of, uh, going to the pyramids and showing them actually doing it, and doing it in a quality Hollywood style way. I'm not saying put Megan Fox or anything on there, or grab a superstar if we can find one that actually has a degree in archaeology and has ever, used a shovel before. Produce high quality stuff. Like, it doesn't seem like it's that foreign for us to produce a bunch of high quality things that, baffle the mind, and then use our SEO and stuff to try to get it out there.
Well, here's the big problem. You have Megan Fox. All right. So I did a little reading on her when all this came out, and she basically disappeared after the Transformers movies, which, to her credit, she decided to focus on raising her children and things like that. She'd made a pile of money and said, I'm out. Right. So, and now she's back because she proposed. This isn't like a publicity stunt. She proposed because of her interest in archaeology that she do this show, and she has the clout as an actress and the money and the drive and the time to get it done. Right. So she got it done. She approached Travel Channel, and now she has a show. Well, I think, when we talk about these things, especially privately or even on Twitter and in blogs and stuff, when we talk about these things, like, oh, we should get PhD. Listen, we should get PhD professor Dr. Bill White up on a show to talk about how awesome historical archaeology is. But Dr. Bill White and Chris Webster and Bill Octor do not sell advertising and do not sell shows like, admittedly, very attractive Megan Fox does. Yeah. I mean, let's just put that out there. I mean, even Harrison Ford. He's an attractive man, and if he were not an attractive man, he would not have. I mean, Indiana Jones wouldn't have done as well. And we have to on the one hand admit that that's a shitty way that our world works, but at the same time say, but we have to play that game if we want to get archaeology into the forefront.
Yeah, man. I don't know about playing that game, but I do think that we should do something, right? So there's more than one strategy to using the internet, right? And one strategy is to just become this, use your fame on the internet to just propel it, right? So that 0.001% of Hollywood stars, they can use their fame to just do that. So we don't have that. The other strategy can be ingenuous or disingenuous, is to create authority, right? To become these authorities. Mm-hmm. And we see this every day, man. People come out of nowhere and they're these life coach guru authorities, and they've got podcasts and millions of suckers are buying their programs and all this other stuff, right? But the best thing about archaeology is we don't have to create authority, because we actually already are authority. We just have to use it. Mm-hmm. So on all sides, there's these people who are making millions of dollars by becoming authority, by writing blogs, and then writing a blog about how I wrote blogs and how I finally got to meet Harrison Ford, or how I found a way to meet Megan Fox, and then millions of people click on that kind of stuff, right? Or we could go for the other strategy, which is not getting millions and millions of clicks, but just having plenty of individuals who are authorities constantly filling the airwaves, so that when somebody clicks on pyramids, there's like 65 experts around the world that already have tons of videos, tons of articles, tons of interviews, even if we interview each other, and all the SEO behind it to just ramp it up, so that when they put a new Megan Fox on there, like, that's only going to be a few of the hits. The majority of the hits are going to be us, stuff that we already created.
Right, because like the Megan Fox TV show we're talking about here is sort of the end game. It's sort of where you end up. But first you have to sort of, there needs to be a public interest. This show is on TV because a production company thought there was enough interest where they could make a profit by putting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into producing this 4-episode miniseries. And they thought they were going to get a good return of investment on it. Right now, it seems like, at least within the North American market, or at least the U.S., there are not many production companies or producers or networks who are willing to put in hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into a straight science archaeology product. We've seen attempts over the years, the Time Team America, things like that, and they sort of fizzle out over time. So is the problem what we have to offer, or is it there's not enough public interest? And if so, how do you generate public interest? So I think the first step is sort of being we all need to be our own first advocate, and to be out there and be present and make the voice. And that's the first step. The next step, though, is to sort of get some attention at some phrase, either, which is why one of the things I do like about the APN is that the APN is sort of showing the idea of if there isn't already an organized media network for archaeological discussion, let's create our own.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's easier to do on a podcast. I'm not saying it's easy. Chris knows that better than anybody. That's not easy. But it's easier than if we were going to try to start doing a film studio or a television studio. Those are harder things to do. But this is a good first step. I don't think, while it looks doom and gloom when we see pseudoscience on your basic cable TV channels, the fact that we have things like the APN and some of the other archaeology podcasts that do exist out there, there is a voice, and it's much more of a voice than there was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think we are moving in the right direction. And unfortunately, it may be like all things archaeology, very slow.
Yeah. Well, I think, going back a bit, I agree with all that, Bill, and with what you were saying also, West Coast Bill. And I think when I mentioned we have to play the game, I didn't necessarily mean that we have to find somebody, some celebrity or something to solely do something like this that we can make credible. But I think I think Megan Fox has what's clearly a passion for archaeology, which is first off awesome. That's great. It's amazing that she has that. And then it's the problem is she hasn't read the right material. She talks about, Eric von Daniken and the books that he's written, and every archaeologist that knows about Eric von Daniken knows that isn't exactly a credible resource on archaeology. Right. So if she could have been paired with a co-host, not just somebody who showed up for every 5 seconds of the minute or so and said, hey, this is the actual reality here, but an actual co-host, pair her as the person who is being sent out in the world as the face of this show because people know her and we'll just watch it because she's a celebrity, and then pair her with a co-host that's an actual archaeologist, somebody maybe who's got a little bit more public archaeology cred anyway. We don't really have a Neil deGrasse Tyson or of archaeology yet, I don't think, but like Sarah Parcak, who won the TEDx prize of the space archaeology thing, she would be a great co-host. Bill White, what is the name of the woman who runs archaeology in the city in DC? I always forget her name.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. Yeah. She would be a fantastic co-host for something like that, wouldn't she?
Yeah, she would.
The proper Dr. Jones.
The proper Dr. Jones. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Alexander Jones would be amazing to be a host on any of these shows.
That's all we need, and it's amazing that these people like her, like Dr. Jones, are really hyper focused on what they're doing, and she's doing this amazing community archaeology thing. And I think that there's a few of us out there, and I've half attempted to do this with the APN, but I feel like there's a few of us out there that need to just look at numbers. What is the best message we can give to the most amount of people for really, quite frankly, the least amount of effort, because that's what's going to be successful. What is the way we can reach the highest amount of people? And it's the reason why I've gone a little bit backwards myself. There's a lot of radio people that are coming into podcasting. I've had a few of them in my podcast workshops here. There's some in town in Reno here that are coming out of radio for one reason or another, and then starting a podcast that they're monetizing and doing pretty well at. Well, I've gone the other direction because I want to reach more people. So, it's another thing I did in 2018. I started a radio show. It's on Carson City Community Media. It's a local station. It only hits the Carson Valley, but they really promote out their live links so you can listen from anywhere. And it's an hour-long call-in archaeology show. I want people to actually call in and talk about these things and say, what's going on? So tune in knvc.org at noon Pacific time on Fridays, and you'll hear it. And we're going to be taking episodes of some of the podcasts on the APN and actually dropping those in those time slots on times when I'm out of town too. So I don't know, Bill.
That sounds like a good idea. In the back chat, I put, and we should actually put it, this thing from Gary Vaynerchuk. If you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's this guy that, his shtick is that he's really good at doing online business and online marketing, but that he's like this anti-hero. Well, no, I wouldn't say anti-hero. Just a brutally straightforward sell things kind of guy, right? So what always irks me about listening to Gary Vee stuff is that there's no discussion of what the future, like why you would be doing this, like that this would actually make the world better or anything like that. There's just this, caustic, straightforward. Here's how we sell. Here's how we sell. Here's how we sell. Right. And then, try your hardest and overcome obstacles and all that other stuff. Right. But I saw a website or a blog post that he wrote a little while ago about making his own distribution, how to grow and distribute your own content through social media and through online. And he advocates a combination of, creating your own content and then also using social media and paid ads to get that stuff out there, because you can target for a few dollars, right? So what I was thinking is, if there was 5 or 10 archaeologists that are already creating content to make pillar, man, I'm blanking right now on it, but actually it was part of what I was going to teach in my my workshop, to create pillar content and then have that be kind of one of the main pages on your blog or website, or whatever you're creating, your vlog or your podcast. So there's a pillar page, and then from that you make micro content and distribute that through either affiliated blogs or through other social media. And then you have just catchphrases. They're even smaller micro content. So there's the long form pillar, then there's the short sample of that pillar that's distributed. And then there's just snippets of that pillar. And then you use a small amount of paid ads to get that even further. So I don't know if I'm going to use any paid ads or whatnot, in 2019, but I think that if we were going to combat this would be the exact way. If you were an Egyptologist, to create pillar Egyptology content that's based on the interest that people have, not necessarily debunking the aliens, but telling the truth about, some aspect, mummies or something like that, or the pyramids, and make that the pillar content that's written in a vernacular form, and then disseminate it throughout all the other affiliated contexts, the Smithsonian or the National Museum of Egypt or other different, whatever university page, then have other Egyptologists spread that out. And then from that, have micro content that's just phrases from those blog posts that all kick back to you. And then from that, put, $10 or $15 a month into Facebook ads or something like that, because you can, target the individuals that you'd actually want to have that. And if you did that from 5 Egyptologists over an entire year, for like $1,000, all of a sudden you've filled content. And then when the next discovery comes, Smithsonian doesn't have to question who to call. They just call these 5 Egyptologists, because the minute you type in Egyptology, you get these 5 people who have done it. And fortunately, they will not be Megan Fox.
Right. Nice. Well, I want to definitely comment on this, and we're going to link to this article in the show notes, because I was just looking through that while you were mentioning it, and I want to comment on the other side of the break. The ad is going to be for the APN membership. So listen to that. You can gift it. If you get an annual membership, it's 30% off. So that's a pretty good deal. Like, our supporting membership is $5 a month. And I think it works out to like $38 a year or something like that, if you get the 38% off or 30% off. I mean, it's not that much, but it still helps us out. So let's listen to that, and we'll be back in a second and wrap up 2018. This network is listener supported. We're trying to move away from paid advertising while also creating new shows and supporting the ones we have. The APN has never and will never make a serious profit on our podcast. Every little dime we make goes back into the network and improving show quality. So become a member today at www.archpodnet.com/members to show your support, get some extras, and be a benefactor for archaeological education. Members get stickers, a coffee mug, a t-shirt, bonus content, early access to episodes, a private Slack team to talk to other members and the hosts, and full access to training on Team Black over at arccert.black. So check out our memberships at www.archpodnet.com/members today and support archaeological education. That's www.archpodnet.com/members. Now back to the show. All right, welcome back to the final segment of 2018, more than likely, but of episode 153 of the Sierra Muck podcast. And, when we left on the last segment, Bill, you were talking about this article from Gary Vaynerchuk, and he, I do follow him on most of the socials, although he is just like out there. Like, the minute a new social media outlet comes out, he's on it, right? Like, he's just attacking it and killing it. And he's got
his job, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
The minute a new unit is laid out, I'm on it too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
No, I don't know about that.
I found out about it. Yeah, I went and checked it out. It's got potential for archaeology. Actually, it's really just like video based Twitter kind of. It's like a stream, but it's all video, and they've got these licenses for music, and people are doing lip syncing and put actual music behind their videos, and it's not copy protected because, well, it is, but they've got the licenses. So
And it's
anyway,
not
that's kind of
Kesha.
their hook.
Is it Kesha?
I'm not familiar with that one. Yeah, there's too many out there. I have no idea.
The amazing TikTok video by Kesha from a few years ago.
Oh,
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Now that you mention it, I remember that one. Yes.
Yeah, my mind just got destroyed from the earworm of imagining hearing that. So don't listen to it. Don't listen to it.
Don't listen to it. So anyway, I'm going to link to this Gary Vaynerchuk article because I'm having some thoughts here. He actually put up a embedded Google slide link, which is genius. And I didn't actually know you could do this, but I'm going to start looking into this. He's got an 86 slide presentation on how to have this pillar content like you were talking about, Bill, and then create micro content from that. And I'm just thinking, I'm putting together some papers right now. I'm going to start presenting more, again, in a way to really get this information about what we're doing at WildNote and digital archaeology in general. I'm going to start presenting more on the real nuts and bolts of this stuff, not just the usage of it in the field, which we do see presentations on that kind of stuff. But I think we need more presentations on the nuts and bolts of digital archaeology, digital workflows, using tablets and stuff like that. Just real and honestly, doing that at a conference is really not the right venue for that, but that's the only place archaeologists go, and that they hear those things and that they respect when they see that, oh, he went to this conference and did these things. But that being said, I have the ability to record all these as well and create that pillar content, like you're saying, and then micro chunk that out. You can video it. Every single one of these microphones at a conference, even a small one, is plugged into a mixer. And if you have a device, like a little recording device that you can plug into that mixer, then you can tap right off the back end of that thing and have an excellent recorded version of your paper presentation, not somebody's iPhone version that's sitting in the front row. So, and a lot of us probably have, or at least have a friend that has a digital recorder with an XLR input on the bottom. You buy a $15 cable because they're not going to have one there, and you just plug into the back of it on the master out, and you're done.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's an excellent thing, and I'm going to start probably doing that in 2019.
Yeah, I think I might start doing it too, because I already have the small Tascam.
Yeah.
Like I think it's 30-05 recorder that we already use for oral histories, and that thing works pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I already have an app on my phone. I can do the same exact thing, but then I would have to actually I'll have to wear the lapel mic anyway. But anyway, I think I might do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should all be doing it, and we should putting that content out there, even if it's just on your own blog, or you're chucking it up into 30-second, vignettes for your Instagram feed or TikTok or whatever the hell. But I think that's something we should all be doing. So, okay. Yeah. Moving right along here. So I want to make sure we get this topic in because Bill White is gonna probably leave the show if I don't do this. But KiwiBot and digging machines. So Bill, why don't you tell us? Or just KiwiBot? Yeah. Tell us what KiwiBot is, and then we'll bring it back to archaeology.
So KiwiBot is the actual physical manifestation of that Wall-E world that we all are pretty much headed towards, right? Those motorized scooters are the first thing before we have hover pods, and everybody uses an electric wheelchair, even if they don't have a disability. And KiwiBot is the thing that's also going to help that happen, because KiwiBot is a company that works here on the Berkeley campus. And I believe it was started by some robotics students through a collaboration grant, if I know the history of the KiwiBot company. But it's a little 4-wheeled automatic robot that will drive to a restaurant, get the food you've ordered through your phone, and then drive it to your office or dorm somewhere on campus. So KiwiBot only has a certain range, which here at Berkeley is great, since restaurants line like 3 sides of the entire campus. But what KiwiBot does, you use your app, you go to the restaurants that are part of the KiwiBot thing, which are also part of DoorDash, basically all the DoorDash restaurants. So you can just go on there and you tell KiwiBot to go, you order the food from the restaurant, and then tell the restaurant that KiwiBot's going to come and get it for you. Then you tell KiwiBot to go and get your food. and it drives from wherever it's at. The closest Kiwi will get your food, and then they put it in this locked 4-wheel automatic remote vehicle. And then KiwiBot will drive to your office or your dorm. And when it's there, your phone goes off. You go downstairs. You use your phone to open up the box inside your food, hot and warm and everything. And then Kiwi just sits there looking cute till it's time for it to go get another meal.
Nice. I just want to know, to fulfill the Wall-E prophecy, if KiwiBot can deliver me a cheeseburger and a 64-ounce slushie. That's all I want to know.
Yes, KiwiBot can do that. I don't know about the slushie 64-ounce, but I definitely know that it can get you a 16-ounce slushie. I know that all the and the other question I have about KiwiBot though is, can you do tandems? Which would be the greatest invention ever. Like, you can get a gyro from one place and then get your slushie from another and your boba tea from another, and then have Kiwi go from. I mean, does it take 3 Kiwis to bring you all those meals, or does Kiwi go from place to place?
I mean, can it just do my shopping for me? Can I send it to the store to just like get stuff?
No, you still
KiwiBot?
have to park in front of Walmart and they put it in your trunk, but you still have to drive there and park. Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Now watching the video of this online for the very first time, and this looks like a nightmare. But you're also from the same part of the world with all the security bots that like to roam around campus, right? Is it your Berkeley that has the security bots chasing people?
I don't think we have security bots chasing people. I haven't really seen them.
That might be
have a lot to deal with. I can imagine that they'd have a bot, but every time I think of that, I always think of what went wrong in RoboCop. And that we kind of don't want those machine gun bots to.
Hey, it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. No, I think it was in San Francisco, like security bots basically chasing homeless people out of parks, I think is what they were doing.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's horrible.
But this thing looks like a nightmare. Waiting for the, do they like cut off the sidewalks to create only, KiwiBot lanes, and so you're further restricting pedestrians and,
No, so that gets us to our other thing about Kiwi maybe starting to go rogue and kind of become its own thing. Maybe this is the AI that they've been warning us about for our since we've been experimenting, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I was at a crosswalk near campus and I felt a bonk. Something ran into my legs and I looked back and it was little Kiwi, and I was like, oh, that's cute. But Kiwi was just running into my legs. And so I stepped aside like, dang, because usually Kiwi stops if it sees someone in front of it. It stops and it can detect when people are nearby, and then it'll turn and go around, or it'll go with people, but it won't run into anything. And it also won't go off the road into the curb. So I thought, wow, this Kiwi is just kind of doing what it wants. It's just going off. So then that Kiwi stopped and opened up its top and exposed all the food inside, which we can just reach in and grab it. Like, that's the whole thing about Kiwi, that, if your food's safe in there. If you try to bash a KiwiBot, it's not going to open up and give up the food. But this one just opened up its payload, so the gyros and falafel were just open right there. Then it decided to just turn and go off the curb into traffic. And this lady that was crossing the street, she rode up on, like, strided up on her bike and stopped Kiwi from committing suicide in this busy street.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Kiwi was just trying to kill itself, right?
It sounds like he's going to be the folk hero of the Kiwi Liberation Army. That's the folk hero.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We need to destroy that KiwiBot first, because we all know how it ends up, dude. We all know how it ends up.
That one's named Caesar.
Yeah, and I want CaesarBot dead, right? I mean, before I was always on the side of the apes and on the side of but now that they're running into me, and I mean, if Kiwi had more power, I could have gotten hurt. Or if it had the ability to eject its payload onto me, then I would have gotten stuff all over my legs too. So Kiwi could have ruined my clothes.
I think the scarier thing is when it ran into you and then opened up its door. It was like basically offering up an apology to you. Trying to appease the human. Here, take a falafel.
Yeah, but if I put my hand in there and it's thing traps, not only does it crush my hand, but also I'm a thief that tried. Such a low life that tried to steal someone's fries. Like, that's sleazy. We all know you don't eat off of somebody else's fries. So then you guys told me about the most tragic part of Kiwi's story, though.
Mm-hmm.
that one of the kiwis caught on fire, and it was probably Caesarbot. I think there's something wrong with that one. So there's a photo here of a student putting out the fire around KiwiBot that's on fire in front of I think it looks like it's Sproul Plaza, so the main place. So I guess it did a self-immolation protest there on the protest square.
First martyr of the revolution.
Exactly, I know, because no one understood that KiwiBot. So then the students who are crushed, because I think that some people actually live by KiwiBot on campus. They had a candlelight vigil for the spot where Kiwi burned.
That's so funny. That's so Berkeley.
That's there's so many ways you could take that one.
Yeah.
The entire caring more about a robot than maybe even people who might have been suffering in the area.
Well, none of those people suffering in the area, which probably were visible to that, were burning, though.
True.
To be fair.
Which I don't want them to burn. They are suffering, and they can see this spot. They're homeless or poor or have mental issues or drug addicts. I don't want to see them burn.
But at least they're not burning, so they got that going for them.
Yeah, they don't get candlelight vigil, I guess, unless you burn, which I don't want them to burn.
We don't need that. We don't need that at all. Please, none of that. That's our PSA for the day. No burning people.
Yeah, please, no burning people. I don't care how many candles you want. No burning. But the other thing that it brings up is that this idea a long time ago that I remember people talking about how, when I was a tech especially, how they felt like we were robots. We would joke about being digbot. Put that digbot on there. Oh, I'm just a digbot. All I do is just dig like a robot. And the whole idea that they would replace archaeologists with robots. They have a sifting bot. I don't know if you've seen that thing.
Yeah.
It's not good for human bone, but it gets a lot of artifacts easy. Just scoop it onto this sifting bot. And we've used backhoes for a long time. So I don't see how.
I've talked extensively about using drones for pedestrian survey in desert environments.
Well, I mean, yeah, we use drones to all those drawings we used to do in the, all the CAD drawings and stuff like that. Now you can just collect the point cloud with the drone and then digitize the CAD drawing that used to take 1 million years for an actual architectural historian. Now just takes a couple of days.
Yeah.
And they use backhoes all the time in Arizona. I mean, the backhoe is essentially, they don't dig shovel probes. When you find a place that's pretty much an archaeological site, you dig a backhoe near it.
Automating a lot of that stuff is really it's why you need to go back to the first segment here. It's why you need to develop your online persona and your skill set and stay relevant and honestly keep up on the social networks, because if you're not on where the conversations are happening, then you're going to miss this kind of stuff. And when your job gets automated and you didn't know it was going to happen and you didn't plan for it and you didn't plan for how you were going to interact with that automation or how you were just going to do something else because you were totally worked out of a job, then you're done. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So we are going to have, they already have tractors and things like that work automatically, right? Tractors in big fields. They're just on a GPS course because it's pretty predictable what that thing needs to do. And a human is just monitoring it. They're not even necessarily inside of it. I mean, this is a massive tractor that's doing these things. Now, obviously, having backhoes and automatic digging machines, you still need basically monitors to make sure they don't find something, because the computer's ability to pick out artifacts and features and stuff. I mean, hell, the field tech's ability to pick out artifacts and features is not always great. But let alone
I also at the last Northwest archaeology conference I went to, there was some students from, I think, Western Washington that were building this app that could identify ceramics. So they were just getting all these historical ceramics and taking these thousands of photos and uploading it to an app that on your phone you could just be within, the 80th percentile that it's this kind of wear, the 70th percentile that it's that kind of wear, and you just choose the couple that are most likely. So, most of the time, that's one of the biggest things in the West, that a lot of people don't actually know how to identify any historical artifacts. This is like a game changer, because if they start, doing that kind of stuff, and people on their apps can just hold that point and be like, oh, well, this is, a desert side notched, or possibly, I can't remember the other one that's basically a desert side notch, but you find it in California, and the other one that you find in Texas, it's got a different name, but they're basically all desert side notched arrowhead, not even projectile point arrowheads. So, the many years and the dozens that it took me to see that many desert side notch points, this app, you can just put it down on the, photo board, the same 3D photo board that we use to digitize artifacts already. And it just tells you what kind of ceramic it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the people are developing that stuff right now. There was the projectile point thing being developed over in the East Coast by Chris, what's his last name? Chris Cameron, I think. And I'm not actually sure where that went, but there was also people we heard about at the NWAC conference last year developing a ceramic typology database that would actually automatically identify ceramics and things. So those things are being invented by people. And like I said, you got to be aware of it. You got to know where your skill set is and how to create it for the new world.
Yeah, but we also need to be also aware of what happened, what Kiwi is showing us.
Beware the lesson of Kiwi.
Yeah, when they reach sentience, that's when we're in trouble. Imagine if that digging bug actually tricks you to think there's a feature and then you get in the trench, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it pulls a Kiwi bot on you. I don't know if they're going to put they're not going to do candlelight visual for me.
Right.
So first rule, send a Kiwi bot into the trench.
That's right.
First, send a Kiwi, trick it, and say that you want a gyro and tell it to go into the trench. And if it's safe, right? Because ape does not harm ape, so computer does not harm computer.
That's right. It'd be the Kiwi in the coal mine. All right.
Kiwi in the coal mine.
That's what we need. All right. Well, I think that's about it. If you guys got one last really quick final thought to wrap up 2018, I'll give you mine to kick it off. It's time management. If I didn't have proper time management tools, I would probably have suffered a heart attack many times over by now, because all the things that I have, they work really well together and they're keeping me on track. And without them, my entire life would fail. So that's my thing. How about you, Dr. Bill? What's your wrap up?
Just keep going.
There you
go. You'll finish all the stuff that you were going to finish, but you'll never finish it if you don't keep going. And in baby steps, start with the very smallest, the tiniest possible thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And then make that a habit, and then expand it just slightly more. So just keep going.
There you go. What about you, East Coast Bill?
Have your mental relaxation, your ways to vent and move things out. Like this year, I managed for the first time in 25 years to return to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I got a regular bi-weekly one with a group of archaeologists, so it's actually pretty cool in that way. And I look forward to it every 2 weeks. It takes the stress of the days, the weeks, the field work out of the way to go hide and do your thing. So find your hobby.
Awesome.
Archaeology isn't 100% of your life. Take 2 hours once in a while for yourself. That's very important. Your self-care.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
That's genius.
Indeed. All right. Well, we'll call it right there, and we'll see you guys in 2019. Please share and engage with the show. Send us a comment. Do something. Long live KiwiBot. We're out. That's it for another episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. Links to some of the items mentioned on the show are in the show notes for this podcast, which can be found at www.arcpodnet.com/CRMArcPodcast. Please comment and share anywhere you see the show. If you'd like us to answer a question on a future episode, email us. Use the contact form on the website, or just email chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Support the show and the network at arcpodnet.com/members. Get some swag and extra content while you're there. Send us show suggestions and interview suggestions. We want this to be a resource for field technicians everywhere, and we want to know what you want to know about. Thanks to everyone for joining me this week. Thanks also to the listeners for tuning in for all of 2018, and we'll see you in the field. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
This show is produced and recorded by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle, in Reno, Nevada, at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.arcpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to arcpodnet.com/members for more info.